so much money goes into that side. How does anyone have a savings account, much less retirement?
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. My name is Brett Gilliland. I'm the host of today's episode. Every episode, my team and I have opportunities to meet with new business owners, not new as business owners, but new to us, business owners who have grown something, they've gotten it off the ground, it's starting to have some real success, and they're still going places. And so these real business owners are sharing real lessons learned and sharing real challenges as they continue to grow their business. So we love providing these episodes for all the seven-figure business owners out there who are looking to learn a new thing, uh, understand or be understood from or by other business owners who get where they're at. And they just want to get some help. So that's what we're doing. And today it's my opportunity to introduce you to Bret Brummitt. If I don't get that first name right, Bret, I'm in trouble. Bret Brummitt is the founder of Generous Benefits. You can find more information about them at generousbenefits.com. At Generous Benefits, Bret and his team are working with businesses to create a tailored benefits plan, a tailored package that meets the need of that team and the culture that they're trying to create in their business. So I'm excited to have you here, Bret. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure. And looking forward to the conversation.
Well, before we jump into the meat of our conversation, would you please give an expanded version of what you guys are doing at Generous Benefits, expanded from the brief intro that I gave? Just help us understand who you're serving and how and what you want people to take away as they think about you and your business.
Yeah, so we are serving that private employer audience. We don't get into the, municipalities and government stuff, just not our flavor. But it's that same
We're
growing
we're
audience.
going to get along well,
Yeah,
Brett. Government's not my flavor either.
yep. So, some of times it is the startup business world. A lot of times it's that more mature business world that is, in that 30, 100, 200 employee range that's grown and evolving. And they're figuring out that everything that they used to do is not sustainable and that what they've done from a benefits package no longer really fits their personnel. And so we do a lot of what is the company value? What is the employee's value? What are those pain points? And we start to customize something that's a little bit more unique to their people. And our mantra or our why is we help improve the communities you serve, and our view is the employers serve obviously a customer audience, but they really serve their employee audience. So we want to improve that employee community, whether that's the employee and employee's kids. That's where we really try to touch. So a lot of what we do is around access to care on the health side,
Mhm.
and then pairing that with so much money goes into that side. How does anyone have a savings account, much less retirement? So we want to do both the health access and really that financial savings access, and one can create a benefit for the other. And so that's
Mm.
really kind of how we focus a lot of the conversations. Not all of them, but that's a big overview.
Well, it's a great overview, and with a world where there are increasing number of options and alternatives and creative ways to get access to the care and to do things for that future savings, um, I bet you guys are constantly having to learn about all the latest and greatest and bring the best of those solutions to your clients, and that's exciting.
Yeah. And I will say the learning about what is out there and what's coming down the pike is kind of that never ending job
Yeah.
that no one pays you for directly. They pay you for that knowledge. They don't pay you for the time invested. And that is a big piece of, what I do, trying to learn so that we can digest that back down to the team, which digests back to the client.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Okay, Brett, good start. Let's talk about in part one of our interview, we're going to talk about lessons that you've learned along the way as you've grown your business, as your team has grown, as the business has grown. It's not quite the same as when you first started it. And there's some key lessons that you've learned to create the success that you've created. So anything that you could share that might be helpful to another business owner, in particular, another seven-figure business owner who's trying to learn how to scale that business, what would you share as a key lesson learned for you?
I mean, learning to teach and trust the staff that they are at the level that you would provide of service,
Mm.
regardless of if they are at the level you would provide of service. Because that's really, I think, when I see other business owners, even myself in that journey, trying to let go of being the everything for everybody and replicate the knowledge. That's a very hard transition, not only to do, but then to trust, and then to make sure that it happens so that you can be actually working on the things that your company and your team need, not so much that you're there working on the things that the clients need all the time. And that's, probably lesson one.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great lesson, and I don't think it'd be any surprise to you, Brett, to know that many of our guests name that as a key thing that they're trying to figure out. And so I'm wondering, well, I think there's value in our listeners hearing that again and again and again, right? You're not alone.
Right.
This is something we all got to figure out. But if we could click down one level, if there's any particular, I don't know, practice or approach that you guys have taken to be able to accomplish that thing of having trained staff members who are going to
Mhm.
provide a level of care or service that equals or even surpasses what you can do.
Yeah, I think for us, like the mentality of, if we look as if we build per hour, if everything was a billable hour, regardless of service work, admin work, anything else, like, how do we adequately serve the client without overcharging them? And so really being able to figure out, I'm doing this, you're doing that. I can't do this. Like, it would be grossly unjust for me to charge a client, 200, 300, $400 an hour to go find an ID card. Like,
Hmm.
I cannot do that to them, nor would I want to do that to them. So shifting, my mentality or our other leadership mentality away from just get them fixed, get them fixed, get them fixed, into get them fixed appropriately so that
Hmm.
we don't have to overcharge them. Let's not kill them on tiny billable hours. And shifting that mindset really has helped move that into place. And then, second to that, we did implement software that, good old fashioned ticketing system that no customer wants to see, but really does help streamline the team so that you don't overstep or get out of your swim lanes of what you should be doing for that clientele, has also really helped that process.
Great, great examples, and thank you for getting a little tactical with us here.
Yeah.
The ticketing system, as well as understanding what is the right level of value creation in the business for a particular issue or challenge or customer complaint or whatever it is, right? I loved what you said. You as a two, $300, $400 an hour type of value adder to the business should not be chasing around an ID card. So how do we push as much work as possible to those lower cost resources? And by lower cost, I didn't hear any sense of judgment in your mind about like these people aren't important. It's just that's the level of attention that problem or issue deserves. Let's put it at the right level of expense.
Yeah, there's no differential in the value that someone can bring to a client or to an organization based on what they make or what they bill per hour. That is the adequate level. And it's actually really hard to have enough talent at an adequate level. And so there are generally times where you also need to put in swim lanes of, that it'd be great. I can totally help solve you for that. Have you tried this?
Mm.
And very educatingly diverting work from your own team to an outsourced correct service provider that may not even be your team.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's huge too. Like, that, talk about value education, who's actually responsible, and trying not to take over the responsibility of another company's responsibility, because that will eat a ton of revenue.
yeah. A lot of profit disappearing. Yeah, burning up that revenue when you're taking care of things in the name of white glove service or really taking care of our client. Sometimes we can shoot ourselves financially when another organization is truly responsible for that deliverable. Uh,
Well, and there's plenty of times where we know we can do it, but we actually become the barrier to the resolution as well.
Hmm.
And getting out of the way is sometimes just as valuable.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Okay, I love that a lot. Any other lessons come to mind for you as you've been over the years? You've been moving from the person who knows everything about the benefits plans and taking care of clients to now I'm building a team, I'm building a business, I'm creating processes and structure and systems. Anything else in there that you'd like to call out?
From as you hit on the processes and structure, making sure that everything that lives in, your head or everyone's head is accessible around an organization. We actually have, as again, we do it in a software format, but it's our big book of knowledge. We
Mm,
have the processes down, we put it in one spot, it's easily accessible to everyone in the company. It's not a binder. It's not stuck in somebody's desk. It's a live document that's web accessible that we are in, day out. It's got a great search function so that we can find stuff
thankfully.
fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thankfully.
thankfully these days, because this didn't exist 10 years ago with great search
No.
functions and indexes. And now
Yeah.
we can find the answers that we build, that we put together. And having the right team that is way better about asking detailed questions, that someone like myself that is not as detail oriented as other team members, having those probing questions asked with the desire to document has really elevated us way beyond anything that would have been my beginning dreams, because that's not my skill set.
Yeah, yeah. I like that one as well. We have a member of our community whose strategy is to expand. Their growth strategy is to expand with new new locations. Okay, new offices in different states, and so they've created something they call their new division or new location Bible. It's basically a playbook for how do we know that location is the right location. What are all the steps that go into analyzing that place? If we choose it, how do we go about finding the people in that market to run the place? Anyway, every step of the process, they've got this playbook. They call it their new launch Bible, or new location launch Bible, I think is what they call it. And but it just brings to my mind exactly what you were saying. There shouldn't be any guesswork about how do we do this, not just do it, but how do we do it in the right way, and how do we make sure that knowledge transfers as people come in and out of the team.
Yeah, no, and it's been huge. That's one of those areas that's we go through a lot of software. I mean,
Hmm.
we like to try things. That's one of our core talents, especially in that insurance HR side software. We test everything, but our one spot where we keep that is really the non-negotiable. Like someday that apple will have its shelf life and it'll rot out, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But
Right.
that's so much work is in there. I don't want that to ever go away, because that is a testament to um, at this point in time, 6 years of extreme team effort.
Yeah, that's company building. You have built something that is now a valuable asset in and of itself. If you were to exit this business for whatever reason, personal tragedy, family matters, just because you were done, like the value of what you guys have created is all captured in that place.
Mhm.
Maybe not all of it, but much of it's sitting there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Way more of it than there ever used to be. This was a startup after a longevity at another agency. And
Uh-huh.
so there's a ton of stuff that lived in my head, a ton of stuff that lived in Kalinda's head. And getting that out once we started growing beyond the two of us to someone else was
Mhm.
huge. And then they became very attuned to, hey, Brett's having like fireside story time about some war stories or client stories. They started documenting stuff because they realized they would need to know this later. And it's just ingrained in my mind. And I don't even think it's as important as they do. And that's really where a lot of it comes down, just from that relaxed environment almost.
Mhm.
You're not up against the pressure of how do we do this? How do we do this? We got to get it done.
Right.
It's that more relaxed conversation around this is the process, this is how we should do it. And again, like I said, the other team members that have the probing questions, okay, so how do you get from there to there? And that's really
Yeah.
super valuable.
But all that tribal knowledge that you and I think you said Kalinda brought, right? It's like how does the team benefit from that? And it does take a fair number of years, even a fair amount
Mhm.
of time to pull all that out. But now it belongs with the business. It's not tied up in you. So that's really cool. All right, Brett, that's been useful. Everybody listening can relate to the issues you brought up and the lessons you've shared. They need to be doing similar things in their business. Let's shift gears now to the second half of our interview, which is focused on an acknowledgement that you still business is about figuring out the next challenge. It is about trying to go to a new place. And as you're trying to go where you guys are headed, what is an area that might benefit from an outside perspective today that I could bring?
Yeah, so we are in that I mean, it's the ever evolving process of staff development, raising leadership from within, finding good leadership from without, and then just finding the talent so that myself, Kalinda, we don't have to be actually in the business for it to run efficiently, smoothly, and even grow without us. And
Yeah,
so it is in that talent building, talent acquisition area that I think is our real next stage, which we've done a good job at, but good job and really setting the world on fire can have a big gap.
yeah. There's certainly opportunity everywhere to improve that. Let's get more specific about the impact to the business if this doesn't happen. If you think back to when you were doing all the actual service work with clients, you've raised up to now you're, I don't know if you ever do that now, but you're in more of a leadership role. What I just heard you talk about was a transition to a leader of leaders role, right? So
Correct.
there's a couple transitions as our businesses grow. What happens if you and Kalinda get stuck at that leader role? What happens to the growth of the business? Why would it be bad to not have other leaders capable of filling into those places?
I mean, for us, there's at some point we also will age out.
Hmm.
That's not on the horizon, but it's not a never event. And so, not having properly trained leaders that can lead other people, those that will make initiatives and judgments, and be able to explain why with empathy, with compassion, and be able to do it without having to get sign off on every single thing every day is going to be huge. And so, if we're always in the mode of having to get permission, there's some level of uncertainty about decision making. If those two things always exist, then we won't ever be able to get past what does Brett think? What
Yeah,
does Glinda think? And those
yeah.
two things need to not be as much so as what is the right thing to do and how to get it done.
Well, and because we share a first name, you know, I could say honestly, I like to hear. I like what it feels like as a business owner to hear those beautiful words. What does Brett think? Right? We can become addicted to that. What does Brett
Yeah.
think?
No,
Yeah.
it's great and it's a comfortable spot, but comfort does not get you across the next peak.
Yes. Yeah. Well said. Well, let's talk about ways to deal with that. But um, if every person on your team is coming to you and Kalinda for the answers, I mean that's one way this shows up. Another way that it shows up is poor decision making in the spot that they're at, because you can't possibly be everywhere all the time. Um, and yet another and more common way that this plays out is we just we get stuck in our growth at the level that we're at because we're perfectly designed to be delivering the results we're delivering today. Like we're set up to get what we do now. And if we want anything more, this is one of the transitions that we have to go through. We have to figure out how to bring up the next group of leaders, or that sometimes it's the very first legitimate leadership team that's not the founders. So let's talk about some ideas there. How can we level people up as leaders? How do we think about, maybe we need to hire leaders in, but what do we think about to be able to move from being the leader to now the leader of leaders? And a couple thoughts come to mind. One of them is it's really, really hard to hire somebody when you don't know what you're looking for. And I'm talking on the hiring side now, but it applies to the development side. And so, what I would encourage you, and it sounds like Kalinda would be a key voice in this as well, is to start thinking about, what is the generous benefits way of leading? Like, what does that actually look like? The clearer we get about the generous benefits way of leading, the easier it'll be for us to figure out how to start developing our leaders to that. Also, the clearer it will be if we ever hired a leader from the outside, we would know more clearly what we're looking for in a leader. And that sounds like a little bit of a silly idea, but let's break it apart just a little bit.
Yeah, and
Because
I don't think it sounds silly because
okay,
if you want your vision to live in your brand, then why wouldn't you define how that if the brand was a person, how it should act?
well, you're tracking. You're right there
Yeah.
with me, Brett. So I appreciate that. For others, though, let's just break this down a little bit more. Leadership is such a generic or I don't know overused term. Whatever. We get it. We're like, I know what leadership is. We say the words, but if I really were to press on somebody, what is good leadership? They'd have ideas. They'd start saying them. But if I asked you what good leadership is, and I ask another business leader what good leadership is, there are likely to be differences in how you view that. And those differences are aligned very well to the values that you guys have in your business. So I'm talking about another layer of understanding the values, the unique thing that makes generous benefits unique. And those are your core values. But for leaders, there's another standard of expectation, another understanding of what do those behaviors look like for a leader in our company. So I would encourage that. We created a leadership model that we share with our members in the elite entrepreneurs community. I'll share those. There are three basic elements. There's four elements, but there's kind of three leadership to dos, and there's one leadership way included. Okay, so the leadership to dos are set the vision. Like we need everybody to be really clear in any situation what we're up to, why we're doing it, how we're going to go about doing it. Like clarity, right? So set the vision is the number one thing that leaders have to do in our model. Build the team. So that could be development, it could be hire, but it's like how do we bring the genius, the human genius together to go achieve that vision? And then the third to do is we call it deliver results broadly. For the business owner, there's a specific flavor of delivering results, and that has to do with getting the resources. The business owner's first and foremost responsible for getting clarity with the vision, building the team, and making sure that we never run out of fuel, that we don't run out of money to go achieve that vision. That's the very specific flavor of delivering results that a business owner must own. But for other levels of leadership, there's a set of results that are expected, and they have to be good at delivering results on a consistent basis. So those are the to dos in our leadership model. The way of being, we generalize it or we use one word to summarize it, and it's care. In our model, it's like you have to care genuinely about the purpose of the business. You got to be completely attached to the why for the business, and you have to care about the individuals that you lead. Genuinely care about them as human beings. Now, that's our model, but that may not fit the generous benefits way. I don't know. But you guys have to come up with your own, like, what do leaders do and what's their way of being that's unique to us. And it doesn't mean it's not that any one of those elements would be unique. It's that the combination that this is our leadership model. And once you have that clarity, you can start to chip away at developing the current team. Well, what does it look like to set the vision in my example? Well, we gotta in our approach, we co-create plans that align. We get clear on the big picture, and then we co-create plans that align to that big picture. So we bring others along. We invite them in to have a voice. And so, how do we develop to that? Well, maybe I have an emerging leader, and I teach them the way that I bring others along in a co-creative process, and then I invite them to lead the next session, and I might observe them or shadow them and give them feedback. But we like to use the work that we're doing as the development opportunity instead of just we'll send them to another class. And there's a role with classes, but a lot of it's development and doing the work. So how can I get more intentional about the leadership work I'm doing today and and teaching somebody else how to do it? And you guys have spent, Brett, you guys have spent the last, I think you said 6 years creating this way that we serve our clients, the way that we get and serve our clients. now you're going to do a similar set of tasks, and maybe you captured in that same system around what does leadership look like in generous benefits. So that's one way. Let me stop there and just say if any of that's or ask if any of that is helpful, or if you have any follow-up questions to that.
No, it's actually super helpful, especially thinking about, again, that value and the way that we lead and the way that the behaviors, how that should look. Because it's not something we've really thought about from all right, so yes, we know we should. Tactically, we want to make sure we're attending to everybody, but have we thought about the manner, the characteristic of it? And that has not been thought about. And so I think that's going to be a very good practice for us going into the next quarter.
Yeah, or the next season, right? You could
Yeah.
even say the next season of our
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
Mhm.
So cool. And another thing that we trip up on sometimes as business owners is assuming that the very best producer in a given team is, rising to that leadership spot, and that's an old topic as well. I mean, it's not a new idea, but just be careful that you find out why people want to lead. Because a lot of
Mhm.
them are raising their hands that, yes, I want to lead because they see that as the only real progression in pay or experience. When actually there's lots of opportunities we can create in a role or department level, career path or progression path that has nothing to do with leading other people. And you want to find people that get excited about the idea of unlocking potential in others, of raising performance as a group over just me as an individual. And if they have real aligned desires to a leadership role, I think there are ways to start inviting them into leadership thinking and leadership conversations that begin their journey. So I don't know. Those are the thoughts that come to mind right away. I would say on the hiring front. One more tidbit I think might be helpful to you and others, Brett. As we go to hire leaders who've been where we're trying to go, because that's an important part of building the team. Like when we get to a certain place, a certain stage in our business, the current team members don't know what it looks like to go from where we are to the next stage, right? By definition, most of them haven't been here before. So they've helped us go from startup to seven figures, and we're growing, but maybe none of them have seen what it looks like at 10 million. Maybe none of them have seen what it looks like at 5 million. And sometimes we reach to bring in leaders from the outside who have been where we're trying to go because they know what the processes and the systems and the talent needs to look like at those levels. And that is certainly true. It's important to bring in people from the outside. But I wouldn't bring in all people from the outside for your leadership roles. Um, and by default, you and Kalinda are already in there as leaders, and you're not going to like replace yourselves. But to the extent that I could, I would bring up as many leaders as possible as quickly as I could internally, and then supplement where I need to with external leaders who've been there. And when I say who have been there, I mean literally who have been the next step or two that we're going. I don't mean somebody who's been at, Fortune 100 company, and now I got a like a retiring executive who's excited about what we're doing, and they're going to come
Mhm.
and help us do all this stuff. It will feel foreign to them, and it'll feel foreign to your team to try to plug in somebody from a really big company into the stage that you're at right now. But I've seen a lot of business owners get overly excited about some, super experienced executive coming in to be with us and help us go where we're trying to go. And oftentimes those executives are used to certain levels of systems, certain levels of budgets, different even different language. It's just a different space. So I would caution you from reaching too far up that experience ladder. Just reach a stage or two. Ideally, somebody that's actually been where you are and has taken something to where you're trying to go. That's a good tidbit that will help somebody out there. Whether or not that's helpful to you right now, Brett.
Yeah, no, that's actually pretty fantastic. I've witnessed both of those. Don't know that I would have put the words to either of those, but witnessed both of those experiences, and you're spot on.
Yeah, well, we're trying to provide some helpful value, some practical things here. If you can put together your own leadership way or your leadership model and start developing your team to that, and or use that to help you in your hiring criteria. That will definitely help. And then when you do have to go outside for a leader, let's make sure that you're not more than one or two stages ahead of where you're at, and that ideally they've been where you are and grown it to something that looks like what you're trying to get to. So that'll wrap up our help today for you and others. And I just want to thank you for coming on, Brett. It was really great to have this conversation. You brought up some really good lessons and a great issue.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate the time, and we're going to go implement some of the feedback.
All right, very good. Okay, Brett, if people want to learn more about generous benefits, where would they go? How can they connect with you online if there's a way to do that?
You did mention earlier the generousbenefits.com website and then our blog. We do spend a lot of time writing. That's actually our team. We're not outsourcing that. So you get to know
Mhm.
us a little bit there. And we are active on LinkedIn for probably our most prominent social media with the Generous Benefits Company or myself, just linkedin.com/ I think N and then Bret Brummitt, one T Brett on this side.
Yeah.
And we do have a podcast called Generous Impact where we do highlight some people are clients there that are making an impact in their communities, and others are just community members making an impact. And so it's a fun, feel good. Sometimes there are tears, sometimes it's just joy, but it's a great listen to, and you get the insight into myself and our team as well.
Sounds like a cool thing that you're doing there. Appreciate you sharing that. Generous Impact is the podcast.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
check out Brett and his team over at Generous Benefits. Thanks again for being here, Brett. For all of you listening, please like, share, review, comment, do all those things to help these episodes get in front of as many seven-figure business owners as possible. We specialize in this space, this 1 to 10 million space. Getting the business from 0 to 1 million is quite a feat, and it's amazing. Relatively few do that, but once you arrive here, there's new things to learn, and we're bringing as many guests as possible to share their real lessons and crack open their real challenges. And we just hope that it helps you along the way. So keep listening. We'll see you on another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast.